let's take a look at the Northwest Division. A number of prospects there for Summer League. We're going to cover them, how they played, who was good, who wasn't. Doesn't matter. Is Michael Bolton a legend? Yes.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I'm getting ready to receive my first NIL payment. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Across the summer, sports are a little bit thinned out, but still, there's stuff to do, and FanDuel's going to help you out. Every day, every customer, all summer long, you get either a boost or a bonus. Go to FanDuel.com right now to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms. I want thumbs, I want bangs, I want comments, I want subscribes. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. All right. Summer League. Championship was just decided. The Heat get the victory over the Grizzlies. Hang that one. Jimmy Butler, you couldn't do that, could ya? Hang that one in the rafters. Josh Christopher revenge game. We'll talk about those teams tomorrow. But we are here talking about the old mates, the Northwest Division, with some high-ish prospects. A couple of teams really stacked with NBA players on their roster who played decent roles, which is really interesting. It gives you a different sort of canvas to explore. It's a terrible analogy. It just gives a different perspective. Because there are some players who play on teams with no prospects. And they do everything they want, and the numbers are good, but it doesn't mean anything. There are some teams that have 6 players from their NBA roster playing on the Summer League team, so guys have to sort of fit in. And that does give us a better idea of how the guys can look and where they can fit into that hierarchical system. We'll start with Denver, a team that didn't have a bunch of high-end prospects at all, but they definitely had players there. And we'll start with a guy who put up one of the best lines all through Summer League and has a real chance to get a sizable rotation role this season, and that is Julian Strawther. I see Strawther as more of a 3 versus a 2, but there's obviously an opening at the 2, and I would be pretty stunned if Christian Braun did not get first crack at that position. Strawther had a few moments last season, but in the end was wildly inconsistent, but he came out to Summer League and did exactly what you want a second-year player to do. Late first-round pick 2 years ago or a year ago, he came out, 37 usage, 28 points a game. He hit 41% of his threes, over 4 a game. A steal. He was the 7th best player for categories and 8th for points leagues. Bang. He did everything he needed to do. He shot the ball well. He dominated with the ball in his hands. The other numbers aren't, they're awesome. They're not terrible. 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He's going to have to be in the rotation because they are just trying to focus on these sort of players. These younger guys they drafted, of course, they did just get Russell Westbrook, so we'll see how much he plays. But Strawther's someone we just keep one eye on, how they use him, what they do. Is it Brown? Is it Westbrook? Is it Strawther who gets that starting spot with KCP gone? But he definitely did exactly what you wanted him to do. Didn't do it on like 70% three-point shooting either. 41 was good, but maybe he can do that. He just had the ball and said, right, I'm going to get this stuff done. And he did. Like I said, you can't really ask for much more there. The rest of the team, there were some interesting performances. Dayron Holmes, unfortunately, wasn't one of them. I thought he looked okay in that first game, but tore his Achilles and he's going to be out for the season. So we're going to have to be relying upon Dario Saric and Vlatko Cancar to be the backup center, hopefully not DeAndre Jordan. Holmes is going to come at a discount in dynasty drafts. I'm still pretty high on him. Trey Alexander was someone I thought was a first-round player. He slid into the second round and then didn't get drafted at all. I expect that some of that, much like Jalen Bridges in Phoenix, was a negotiation thing where it's once he was out of the first round, he's like, please don't draft me. I'm going on a 2-way to Denver. And he was good. 24th best player for fantasy at Summer League. 31 fantasy points, which was 40th overall. 17 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. 22 usage. He shot 48% from 3 and didn't miss a free throw, so that's going to come back a little bit. But again, we talk about the dearth of guards after Westbrook's in as your backup point guard, but no KCP. I think that they will be looking to get Alexander onto a full-time contract. Whether he contributes this year is unlikely, but I will remain pretty steadfast in my opinion on him when we do my re-ranks in a day or two. Jalen Pickett, there was the opportunity for him to take over from Reggie Jackson as the backup point guard. I can't remember whether it was him or Strowler that was the first round pick. I think it was Strowler first round and Pickett early second round. But Jesus Christ, that is just... what is this? What are these numbers? 334th overall category league ranked player. 3 points a game on 12 usage. He shot 12% from 3, 21% from the field. He didn't get a single steal. He had 3 assists. Like, bro, what are you doing? You are a second-year player with a rotation spot up for grabs. He didn't impress me last season either. That is 25 minutes a game, 3 points. Horrid. Alexander already looks better than him. I'm not going to put massive stock in the Summer League shooting numbers, but Jesus Christ, that is terrible. Hunter Tyson had some size, some shooting numbers. His production was a little bit better. He ended up with 15 points in 30 minutes a game. 31% overall from the field is terrible, obviously. And he didn't stand out in other areas. And one of the things he needs to be is Sam Hauser. He needs to be a tall shooter, and that's what he needs to do. There's less of an opportunity for him with Porter and Gordon there, and that's sort of the position he needs to play. But he was okay. He was adequate as a second-year guy. PJ Hall, I thought, was pretty good. Big, tall, stretch 4/5. 12 and 7 in 27 minutes. 1.5 blocks. As usual, the shooting numbers are a little bit down, but the volume was okay. And much like Trey Alexander, I think that PJ Hall showed that he can be a real NBA rotation player. Whether he will be allowed to do that, I don't really know. But I think he can be. Let's go to the next team. Let's talk about your Minnesota Timberwolves, because they had a top 10 pick. We didn't expect them to have a top 10 pick coming into the draft, but they ended up with one. It was Robert Dillingham. And that was all eyes on him. Now, Dillingham came into the draft process, and one of the big knocks on him was obviously size, height, and weight. And he was short, and he looked skinny. So those things were, not that you expect him to be different, because, we're measuring them. We know what they are. He looked small. He didn't look great in that respect. But I think overall, 30 minutes a game in Summer League, he was what we sort of hoped for. 7.6 assists in a Summer League setting is fantastic. 31% from 3 is not ideal. Weirdly, 55% from the line is terrible. 13.6 points, 4 rebounds, 7.6 assists, and a steal. He is going to have a massive crack at being the backup point guard on the Timberwolves. And if anything happens to Mike Conley, you would think he's going to get solid minutes. Now, he will be like almost any rookie point guard in that he will be bad. But the difference with him as a top 10 pick, he won't be on a bad team. So he won't be given big usage, big opportunities. We watch him. I think he's going to be interesting. The assist numbers are good. I liked some of his ability to, with his hands on defense was okay. Not he's a good defender at all, but his hands were fine. Getting to his shots at times was pretty solid. Overall, relatively successful. 34th in points leagues rankings, 31 fantasy points. Pretty good stuff. I don't think we're getting too upset about that. Pretty good numbers. They had a lot of other contributors as well, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Daishen Nix put up pretty good numbers. He sort of bounced around the NBA for a few years. I don't think we need to worry too much about that. I think he's on a two-way for them. I don't think we need to worry. He had 15, 4, and 6 with 2.6 steals. Another guy that I don't even have listed on this list of 6 players is Nadir Efi, a guy that I thought should have been drafted last season, came across from Paris. I thought he looked really good. Actually, Efi, he had 11 points in only 14 minutes, but 11 points in 14 minutes is really good. 1.3 steals, 2 assists. Thought he was okay. Leonard Miller and Josh Minot were two of the names that I wanted to watch, and we saw them, and they pretty much delivered. Miller was the 27th ranked player for fantasy, 16 and 8 with 1.8 steals and a block. He shot only 30% from 3 on 24 usage. He played a lot of center in this as well, which he obviously won't do in Minnesota. But with Kyle Anderson gone, and Joe Ingles is replacing him, but there is an opportunity for a forward to get some minutes. And Naz Reid can take some of those minutes too, obviously. But Miller's step forward here was nice. And I thought the same with Josh Minot. Now, Minot is in year 3, and we want year 3 players to do that. He is a really young player coming out of college, or he was a young player coming out of college. And him in the G League, Some of his defensive numbers have been great. And they weren't quite the same here, but still 44th overall, 37th on Yahoo points. He averaged 16 points, 7 rebounds, 1.4 steals, and 0.8 blocks. He only shot 23% from 3, which is a little worrying on low usage. But I do like his defensive ability. Overall, I do think Miller is the better prospect, but they both did sort of enough. One of the guys that the eye tests would have told you would have popped was Terrence Shannon Jr. And the reason I don't have Terrence Shannon highlighted with his stats is that for fantasy, they weren't very good. Look, they were fine, but they weren't like the numbers that you might think. He had an unbelievable first game where he had just ridiculous dunks. He was getting to the rim whenever he wanted to. And that's where watching Summer League in the context of that is important. I watched all of that game, and I was like, okay, he's dominating these guys at 24 years of age, getting to the rim whenever he wants, but there's not much else coming here from Shannon. And overall, he ended up as the 131st ranked player. He played 23 minutes a night. He averaged 13 points. He shot 25% from 3. He had under 0.8 steals and 1 assist per game. And that is the problem, I think, with Shannon, is he really thrived as an older player who had some okay shooting with some seasons that weren't good at shooting. But he was a volume scorer, and that will never happen for him, I don't think, at the NBA level. I thought he had some decent defensive moments on the court when you watch him, but overall, it was a very empty sort of a scoring line from Shannon through Summer League that made me think that me having him lower in my rankings and dynasty rankings, I'm not that worried about that. His age is advanced. He's one of the oldest players that was drafted. And the lack of versatility right across his game. Like the 1.3 blocks, really good. Like that's impressive. But yeah, he's a 67% 2-point finisher because he just got to the rim whenever he wanted to, and that will never happen like that in the NBA. So I think after this Summer League, Shannon's dynasty rookie stock will rise with a lot of people, and he will go higher than pick 27, which is where he was actually drafted. And I don't think I would do that. Jalen Clark also, after he didn't play at all last season with the torn Achilles, he was here. I won't say that 4 points per game gets me excited. He had 18 minutes a night. He shot 22% from 3. Overall, he was very rushed. Every time I watched him, he just was rushed. No patience, no calm. I guess that happens when you've been out for a whole year. But yeah, I was not impressed. And then Jesse Edwards is a two-way player. He played the 18 minutes a night. He blocked a shot a game, which in 18 minutes is not bad. Overall, like just a standard sort of a two-way big man that doesn't really do anything to get anyone super excited. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. These are the ingredients, nay, the formula that leads to winning fantasy championships, NBA Summer League championships, or for your car. Because eBay cares about your number one ride or die, and that's why they have the eBay Guaranteed Fit. They've got 122 million parts in their warehouse/warehouses. So whatever part that you need for your car, your pride and joy, they're going to have it. And they know it's going to fit. That's why they give you the Guaranteed Fit guarantee. That's why guarantee is in the name and fit is in the name. It's not hard to decode what that means. If the part doesn't fit, you get your money back. Simple. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to US customers. And don't forget to gamble. Not gamble responsibly. That's the wrong one. eBay Motors. I don't know. Let's ride. Something like that. Okay. Don't forget, check out Locked On Sports today. Live YouTube stream. Information that's relevant and correct, unlike the stuff that you see on certain networks covering all sports. We're here to talk about the Northwest Division and Summer League prospects across there. So let's get on to the next team that we're going to take a look at, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. In the past, the Thunder have always had some really interesting Summer League prospects. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that's the case this year because it just wasn't. Usman Jeng was probably their best, and that's year 3 for Jeng, so you would hope that we'd get something good out of him. And it wasn't bad. He was the 10th ranked player for category leagues, 15th in points, averaging 35 points in 30 minutes, 29 usage. He averaged 15 with 3 threes, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, a steal, and 1.7 blocks. That's always been the appeal of Jeng. Not a high usage guy, even though it was 29 usage here, but hit some threes, rebound, assists, and get defensive stats. The problem is the shot has never come around at an NBA level, and what did he shoot here? 40% from 3, but only 35% overall. The rotation role for him is not super clear again this season, especially with Caruso and Hartenstein arriving. I'm getting a little bit out on Jeng. Now, it is good that in this environment, he did what he needed to do, but I'm still quite iffy on where he ends up long term. The rest of their squad, only really 3 guys who matter, if they even matter. Adam Flagler's on a 2-way. Really, someone said to me, I think it was Chuck from Chucking Darts, who's been on the show, goes, man, this Thunder team, all these prospects are all below average athletes. And it was true. It was a tough watch. Flagler can shoot, but he doesn't shoot well enough or at enough volume to make me think he's going to stick on a roster. Dylan Jones, the guy that put up unbelievable numbers at Weber State, being the man. And he had the opportunity to sort of be the man for the Thunder here. And it was like, okay, it was fine. 67th ranked player, 57th for points, 13, 7 and 4, 1.2 steals. These are the sort of things that he did at Weber State. But he shot 41 from the field, 29 from 3, not good free throws, 24 usage. That will never happen for him in the NBA. I mean, the shooting will probably be that bad, but he will never be a usage player. He'll never be in charge of anything. Best case, he turns into Kenrich Williams. Worst case, he's David Roddy. And that's bad. I didn't understand trading back into the first round for Jones. It made no sense to me. And I don't think he's going to have any impact in the NBA this season at the very minimum. The other guy is AJ Mitchell, whose numbers ended up being pretty strong. 16, 3 and 5 with 1.6 steals. He shot 40% from 3 on 25 usage. He had a couple of moments where you go, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Look, that's at least something, a little bit of a pop. Now, again, the team is nobodies. There's no one on this team. It's Hunter Maldonado and Keontae Johnson, who's not even on a 2-way anymore. It was a bad team, right? But Mitchell was enough for me to see him developing eventually into a backup point guard. He did enough things here. The shooting was encouraging. I'm not sure how that's going to stick in the NBA. Steal numbers are fine. The assist numbers are fine. Overall, he was probably more impressive than his draft slot would suggest. But again, Flagler, Jones, and Jeng are the only other guys that are even close to NBA players on this team. It's not like you're playing on that Wolves team with Dillingham, or you're playing on that Rockets team with Whitmore and Shepherd and all these guys. It's just not the same thing. So we have to tone our expectations down, really based on the way that some of these teams are structured. And this is one of the biggest takeaways, I think, when we're talking Summer League, is understanding how the squads are structured. Let's go up to Portland, where we had the number 7 overall pick on this squad. That is, of course, the big fella Donovan Clingan, who I saw a million times in my hotel. And yeah, he is a gigantic man, absolutely huge. And that's why when you look at some of these numbers, you go, wow. But you also go, wow. There's a lot to take in with his production. Clingan, only 20 usage. But that's okay. He was sort of high-ish usage for a big man in college. He probably won't do that in the NBA. And his role is really uncertain with Ayton and maybe Rob Williams around still. You would think he enters the season as a 17-minute-a-night-ish type of backup. He averaged 9 points a game and shot 35% from the field as a 7'2" behemoth. Now, again, some of that is from watching the games where you go, okay, what is going on here? Why is he taking so many threes? Why is he taking pull-up shots from beyond the foul line? Why isn't he just pick and rolling? That was definitely hey, let's see what you can do. And the answer to the question, can he shoot? The answer is very clearly no at the moment. But they tried it, and that's important. We'll see where it goes, but it was bad. 50% from the line. 23 from 3, 36 overall. But the good part of it, he was still the 8th ranked player. 6th in points leagues, averaging 39 points because he averaged over 12 rebounds, he averaged 2 assists, and he averaged 4.3 blocks. 4.3 blocks in 25 minutes. He is going to block a lot of shots. I was a little concerned watching Clingan. The shooting percentages, fine, whatever. We can see where the shots were taken from. That's not ideal. You'd like for more than 35% of them to go in. But some of the problems I had with Clingan in the pre-draft process was, A, why is he not playing actually big minutes with the foot injury, but he just seems like he can't do it. And then that showed up in Summer League as well. That can be rectified, maybe, but it can be changed. But his tank did not look there. But one of the other things is he can't jump. There's no vertical athleticism. Can't get up for an alley-oop. He's not going to block shots by jumping and flying out of nowhere. He's just going to do it by being in position. And I thought there were times in Summer League where the block numbers, they're still there, right? But some of that lack of athleticism, I thought, did show out in a situation where Like, the athleticism of the NBA is going to be a lot more challenging for him than it was here. So, we can see the absolute fantasy appeal in points leagues and category even here. We can see what it could be. But he's not beating the Walker Kessler allegations just yet. Where there's good fantasy production, but does that actually mean that he's going to maintain a big role or be a foundational centerpiece, and that some of the things that he's supposedly strong at, defense, like, can that be worked around, and that's going to like then make more focus on the offense, which he can't do. So I don't know if I come into or exit out of Summer League with more questions about Klingon than I had coming in, because I guess I had questions like, yeah, he's going to block shots. Yep, done. He did it. He's going to be big. Yep, he did it. He's passing. He's going to flash. Yep, it was pretty good. He can't jump. Yep, we saw that. But what the hell is the offense? How does that all fit defensively? I'm still really not really fully there with it. The rest of their team, there are familiar names on it. I won't say that many of those guys did well, because they didn't. Justin Minaya has been on a two-way for a couple of years now. He played actually one of the better Blazers out of the guys that not named Donovan Klingon. I don't think there's really an NBA future for Minaya necessarily. Chris Murray. Didn't like the pick last year, thought he was too old and not good enough to be a first-round pick. He ended up as the 86th ranked player, 80th in points leagues on 16 usage. 16 usage. Now, at least that's sticking to what his NBA role could be. He had 10 points. He shot 26% from three. He had a steal, a block, and 7 rebounds. I just don't see it. I think he is a 10th man for a few years and then probably ends up washing out of the league. Second-year guy, older, you should be able to do more than this. Bryce McGowan's, after being in Charlotte, moved over to Portland on a two-way. He had 17 points. He didn't do much else, and the shooting was rough again, much like it was in Charlotte. The usage was high. He had the ball a lot. I think that he'll be one of those guys that if they do tank down the stretch, we'll be considering him a Delano Banton-ish type guy. But of course, Banton is still there, so Banton will have first crack at being Delano Banton because it's his name, but also because he's better. So McGowan's was fine. I don't think we need to say that Rayan Rupert was fine, because he wasn't. He played 31 minutes a night. He had 12 points on 41%. Didn't hit free throws. Yeah, the 1 3 a game is okay, but 23%. I just thought he looked still a little bit lost and needs more development time. Kennedy Chandler's a guy that had some good numbers a couple of years ago, drafted by Memphis, sort of been out of the league. But overall, his production was okay. He shot the ball from the field, at least not from three, but the rest of the field was okay. And the other one's Turquavion Smith, who's on a two-way for the Sixers. Turk had 13 minutes a game and 7 points, but nothing there to suggest for me that Chandler or Turquavion or Minaya or Rupert, honestly, all 6 of those names, don't really think they're going to end up being NBA caliber players. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Through the summer, we know it, sports shut down because that's the end of their seasons. They get ready for the new ones. Now, there's still stuff on, Major League Baseball, WNBA, NASCAR, F1, PGA, disc golf, it's all there. But FanDuel is going to give you a little bit of a push along because they know that you want to enjoy your summer. So every customer is going to get one of two things every day, either a boost or a bonus. A daily boost or a daily bonus every day, all summer long on FanDuel. So go across to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And now this time, don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay. So we've got one team left for us to talk about, and we're talking about the old Utah Jazz, who just had just too many NBA roster players. And their roster still remains completely all over the shop. Who's going to be on it? Are they making trades of Lowry? I don't really know. Their highest pick in the last draft at number 10 was Cody Williams. And it was really a tale of two halves for Cody, because his Utah Summer League was bad. It showed all the things why I was down on him as a prospect, where I had him at 21 or something. Passive, not sure about the shooting, not sure about the defense, not sure about the passing, not sure about any of it. And that's how it looked. In Vegas, different story. He was way more aggressive. His usage went up, and he looked much better. It is important to note that in Utah, Keontae George and Walker Kessler played. In Vegas, they didn't. So while it's a positive that when guys sat down, Williams stepped up, it also shows that when he's in a smaller role, which I do think that's probably going to be where he is most of the time in his NBA career, he sort of goes missing. And that's one of the reasons why I wasn't super high on him. I wasn't sure what his contribution was. Like, what's his skill? What's his number one thing that he does? And I don't really know how we're answering that yet. Like 191st in -1 across Summer League, 18.9 fantasy points in 28 minutes. He's really bad for a top 10 pick. 11 points a game. He shot 26 from 3. Now, the free throws are good, but 16 usage. Again, context is important. There are a lot of guys on this Jazz team. But 0.4 steals, 0.7 blocks, those are numbers that are similar to the things that happened for him in college. Not that they're exactly the same numbers, but he wasn't a high steals or blocks guy. He wasn't an assist guy. He wasn't a high volume threes guy. But again, you can pick out, I can show you the Utah games and go, look, I told you he was bad. Or you can show me some of the Vegas games and go, what are you talking about, Josh? He's actually awesome. And that's where, like, that's inconsistency, and that should get ironed out at some point in his career. So, much like with Klingon, like, the questions I had with Cody Williams, some of them were like, yeah, like, that's what I thought. But then I go, oh, but what if this happens? But then why didn't it happen here? And then how does it work when he's on a team with better players? Like, that's, maybe he can be just a very, very good role player. That's possible too. Or maybe there's an outlier development curve. Overall, I would say it was disappointing for Williams, but it wasn't super disappointing to me because I was also coming from a much lower space with him than other people were. Let's go onto the rest of their team because, again, there was just a lot of different guys. I wanted to mention that Walker Kessler did play on this team as a third-year guy who was runner-up in Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. That's a little bit surprising. He didn't play the whole way through. Isaiah Collier slid in the draft, obviously, picked 29. He ended up 89th in Yahoo points leagues, 25.5 points on 23 usage. The shooting, terrible. 20% from 3, 68 from the line. And that was the real concern with him is, there was some effort stuff with him, but also some of the shooting and the free throw numbers, and that carried over completely. 3.5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals is encouraging, and that's sort of the stuff he also did in college. Good numbers, good passing, good assist numbers, good passing, good steal numbers. It's just about the shooting, the volume, the free throws. He had some good moments, he had some bad moments. He's not going to be an impact guy this season. Kyle Filipowski is another guy that at times I flirted with as a lottery player. He ended up in the second round. Overall, like, his numbers were okay, 24 usage, but as nearly everybody, he shot horribly, 41 from the field, 27 from 3. He had 11 and 6 with a steal and half a block. Now, in college, he was a much better shot blocker, but I thought that Filipowski showed that he probably should have been a first-round player. Probably not, maybe not as high as a lottery guy, but there were some moments. Overall, it was okay. It was okay. I wasn't rushing to be like, man, look at this. Watch out, Walker Kessler. But it was okay. Keontae George also played. He dominated. You want him to do that? Awesome. He'll be the starting point guard opening night. Taylor Hendricks and Bryce Sensabaugh, the two other first-round picks from last season, both played. And I was really high on Hendricks last season. I was not massively impressed here. Now, again, he was sort of doing the role. He didn't step up into a situation where he's like, all right, I'm the guy that's going to take on this big usage. He had 18% usage. He had 11 points, almost 2 threes, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks, which is almost exactly what he did when he was the starter in the real NBA last season. So he's one of those guys, maybe even like a Patrick Williams, that he's not ever going to ramp up that usage. And I want him to be able to push to like a 23 usage player long-term in his career. Maybe he can still do that. But the threes are pretty good. Rebounds okay. Blocks are fine. Shooting percentages are down. So while it's not super, super impressive, I think, again, context with Hendricks is important and was okay for him. Bryce Sensabaugh only played 19 minutes with 13 points. High usage guy again. Shot the 3 really well, and that was one of the key selling points of Sensabaugh coming out of Ohio State. His last season was wrecked by injury. I still do think he can be a low-end starter at some stage. And this team, I do it now. I guess the question is, do I have more faith in Sensabaugh or Cody Williams to be a starting 3? I'd probably lean more towards Williams just for size purposes, but in terms of impactful players, I think that Sensabaugh is probably that more. But he's probably more of a 2, and even then, maybe he's a little slow and bad defensively to guard on the wing, and that's where some of the concerns come in. But he got high volume up, which you want him to do. Tavion Kinsey is on a 2-way. He played on this team. Jason Preston was on this team. Ken Lofton couldn't have had a worse season. Ken Lofton's not an NBA player. He's not. I know it's a fun story. He's not an NBA player. He was terrible. And Darius Baisley also played on this team. He had 6 points in 19 minutes, and I'm not really sure he's an NBA player either. And that does bring us to the end of the Northwest Division. Summer League. Who was the standout for you? Don Klingon? What did you think of Cody Williams? Is Strowther a shot to start in Denver? Were you impressed with Dillingham? Would you even consider drafting any of these players in fantasy next season in a standard league? Klingon, probably. But again, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge there with how that squad looks. Don't forget, subscribe, double bang, thumb it up, follow, Spotify, all that stuff, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.